Hey everybody, welcome back to Parenting for a Peaceful Home. I'm your host, Christina Louise, and today I'm going to introduce you to my two new friends, Sue and Erin, who run a company called Building Connected Communities. And today we're going to talk to you about what is conscious parenting. You probably heard about it. You might not know what it is yet. And Erin and Sue are going to share that and a lot more today in our talk. Welcome, Sue. Welcome, Erin. Thank you both so much for being here today. I'm just overjoyed to have two certified parenting coaches here to talk with these moms.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
So let's just dive right in. What is conscious parenting? What does that mean?
That's a great question, isn't it, Sue?
Fabulous. One of our favorites.
I guess I'll take a crack at this. Conscious parenting is a paradigm shift in the way we raise our children. It's really about understanding that parenting is not about raising the child, but mostly it's about raising ourselves as parents and as individuals. And so I know the work that Sue and I do with parents is really about helping them to see that if their child isn't acting properly or behaving the way they want, that it's really not about, I know you're talking about punishment versus discipline and stuff. It's really not about cracking down on the child as much as it is about checking in with ourselves and seeing what we might be contributing to the situation, or what we, maybe boundaries that we needed to put into place that we haven't yet. And so our kids don't exactly know where the boundaries end. So they're pushing and pushing and trying to find it, but they don't even know. So it's really about raising ourselves and looking deep within ourselves so that we can form that healthy relationship with our kids.
If I could add on to that, it's beautiful, Erin. I think the other key factor too in becoming a conscious parent and being on that journey is to really understand the conditioning that we've been molded into, brought up in our own family of origin, our history, and what that looks like. Because one of the things I always think of in working with parents is that we all have backpacks on our backs, and they, it's the baggage. And I like to see it and visualize it with parents outwardly, because it's something that we can drop on the side of the road. As I had one client, tell me she dropped her baggage on the side of the road when she was really free of it. And so when we come into parenting, we're coming in with, maybe an idea of discipline based on how we were raised. If we were raised in a household where we were hit, that just becomes the natural way that we begin to raise our children. So a conscious parent would also be someone that looks at the conditioning that they've grown up in, looks at the baggage and the way they've been raised and taught, and shifts their process to understand what their values are separate from that conditioning, and really raising themselves, as Erin beautifully said, by that inward journey, that connection deep within of who am I, aside from the conditioning. What are my values? What do I bring to the table? How do I want to raise my children? Again, separate from the conditioning. So, and our children, they teach us so much about ourselves. They highlight those areas where we need to learn and grow just by them being who they are. If we just tap into the way our children behave, we learn. We learn an amazing amount. I learned last night. Every day, every moment.
Will you share an example with us about what you mean by that?
Will. Sure. I have a 23-year-old and a 19-year-old, and I'm in this field because I had difficulty raising my 23-year-old daughter. It was very challenging as a parent for me to know what path to take, let's say, and I was well conditioned. Not so much anymore. But the relationship last night and the conversation was very tense-filled, and it was really about babysitting and kind of demands and things like that, and not a lot of asking. And just to be honest, I don't think she'll be watching this. So I was called rude, and I've been called rude before, and I don't really appreciate that. And I said, next time you call me rude, don't call me. And so that, of course, did not set up a beautiful scenario. And I realized as soon as I was done with that conversation that I didn't handle myself well. And as I went to bed last night, I reflected on, what do I want this relationship to look like? And I know that the power is in my hands to create what it is I want, because every change in the dynamic that I put out in front of her and myself creates a shift in how we relate. And so, I painted the picture of what it needs to look like now. Next week it might be different, because our kids evolve. Every day they're at a different stage. If they're two, at 2.5, they're different than they are at 2. And each day I think they grow and change. So we have to be very cognizant on a daily basis to adapt, to shift, to tap into what's happening here. What can I do to change my behavior and my reactions to make a change in the relationship?
Thank you for sharing that. So I'm hearing that conscious parenting is less about how we raise our kids and how we raise ourselves. Sue, Erin, what did you mean about that?
Well, I think this story will probably illustrate it pretty well. I have a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And when the 15-year-old was little, I did not know about conscious parenting. I had not met Dr. Shefali, one of our friends and mentors, brilliant woman, the mother of conscious parenting. And so I read every book I could get my hands on. And it was all, back then, all I could get my hands on was timeout, punishment, taking away privileges, taking away friend time, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was very steeped in that way of thinking. If he's misbehaving, then I need to crack down on him, forget about looking at the conditions or the environment or what structure I've established, or if I'm meeting if his needs are being met, forget about that. Let's just crack down on his behavior. And so what I learned was maybe around 7 or 8, he started lying a lot. And it was very concerning to me and my husband. And I would sit up at night and think, oh my gosh, are we raising a chronic liar? I mean, is there something wrong with him? Does he need some kind of help? And so what I came to realize over the years, I found conscious parenting, I found Dr. Shefali. I soaked it into every pore of my being. I lived it, I practiced it, I taught it, so it's really a part of me now. And now that he's 15 years old, our relationship has totally transformed. And now he is so open and honest with me. He will have conversations with me about drugs, alcohol, sex, smoking pot, whatever at school, music with bad lyrics, like whatever hot button issue is going on in a teen's world, he will talk to me about it. And he'll tell me who's doing what and who didn't do it yet and who's been doing it for a long time and who just started. And the other day I was saying, why do you, I said, do you think that other kids can talk to their parents like this? And he said, no. And I said, why do you think that you can tell me this kind of stuff? And he said, I don't really know. I don't understand. I just feel really comfortable doing it. And I said, okay, you don't have to understand at this point. All you need to know is that you're comfortable, and I'm good with that. Yeah. And so, if you look at his behavior completely transformed. Was it because I cracked down on him and molded him into a different person? Not even close. It was because I did years of inner work on myself and learned and practiced and tried and experimented. And as I transformed myself, our relationship transformed. And then as a follow-up to that, he became more trusting of me. He trusted me more. He knew I was in his corner. I wasn't just going to lash out with some punishment or I'm taking away your phone or you're grounded. We don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Instead, what we do when he makes a mistake, because I know that all teenagers make mistakes, we just talk about what he did wrong. We talk about why it wasn't a good choice. And then we talk about what he could have done better and what he will do next time that scenario comes up so that he can make a better choice. And then if there have been any repercussions, if he broke my vase, you know, the classic Brady Bunch TV show, if he broke my vase or if he hurt a friend's feelings or whatever, then we look at what he now has to do to take ownership of his choices and then make them right, you know, fix the mess that he might have made.
Natural consequences.
Yeah. And I love that you're hitting on the inner work that you did, Erin, and I want to come back to you in a second. Sue, is that the same? Is that what conscious parenting is that you do your own inner work and then you can, is that what it is? I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, that's spot on, is that we cannot, our children are born, you know, these beautiful beings, all unique in their own right, and they are on their journey. It's us as parents that disrupt their journey by our own, you know, behaviors and stuff. And so connecting first with ourselves and realigning, so to speak, you know, our methodology, you know, the paradigm shift and how we want to raise our children to be there for our children, to support our children, we first have to connect with ourselves. And so many of us were raised in environments where we are disconnected from ourselves and we are conditioned and we are, you know, on a path that really may not feel comfortable, or, you know, or we feel unworthy, not valued, you know, not heard. And I think those are the three keys, you know, in conscious parenting. And the work that we do is that children need to be seen, heard, and valued. So as children, if we were not seen, heard, and valued, and sadly, in my household, I was not. And so, you know, I also have done years and years of work to nurture myself, see myself, hear myself, and value myself, because the only one that can fix that as an adult is ourselves. You know, we can only soothe and give to ourselves what we didn't get when, you know, we were younger. And so by doing that, by connecting with ourselves and really healing what we call the inner child and the wounds of the inner child, and it's a journey, it's not, you know, a destination, then we are able to connect with our children on such a deeper level and, you know, really create that space for our children to grow into who they are, who they already are, what they're about, and what that looks like. And so I think that, you know, by creating that space, we've really offered our children just an incredible, valuable opportunity for them to grow into who they are. And I'd like to add one other thing I think that really speaks volumes. We love The Iceberg by Kelly Bartlett, that a child's behavior, or all our behaviors, are like icebergs. That the behavior is really just a form of communication. So when children behave in a certain way, you know, for example, maybe throwing something, or, you know, dumping their book bag, or treating someone in a not nice way, or being rude, there's really something underlying in most cases that, you know, 90% of the cases, that is causing them to behave that way. And as parents, you know, we were raised in a way that most of us, I think, that our parents just jumped on the behavior. No one really talked about what was beneath it. And, you know, if we can shift to that perspective of looking at our children as a communicator, you know, in their behavior, even if it's not a positive type of communication, go beneath the surface to find out what is truly going on with your child so that you can help your child through it, as opposed to the old-fashioned punishment, which doesn't teach them anything, doesn't help them, doesn't fix what's below the surface. So I wanted to make sure I shared that.
Thank you. And I just want to follow that up. We have been talking about punishment and how punishment doesn't work, but I want to make sure that the parents that are hearing you say that now understand that we're not coming from an emotional place. We are coming from a scientifically validated place that punishment truly does not teach. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Can either of you speak to that? Because it's, I mean, we see it everywhere. We see it on TV. We see it in movies. It's socially acceptable to spank your kids in the middle of Target now. I mean, right? So
yikes.
How do there's parents who are watching this right now who might not know that it's scientifically validated now that this is not serving your family. Can either of you speak to that and just help them understand where maybe that research is coming from, or what that research does specifically say?
There is a study that was done, and I want to say it, I'm thinking of Atlanta. I don't know if the institute is located in Atlanta, but it was like a 10-year-long study, and I wish I would have Googled the name of it before we were talking today, but it really looked at a lot of emotional characteristics and how the way that an individual has been treated really impacts their emotional processing and the way they respond to other people. Is a very long-term study. I think it went on for 10 years. It's very in-depth, and it's a beautiful study. So I really wish I could think of the name of it. But
yeah, that's totally okay. So there are studies out there. This is science. This is not just our point of view.
Mhm.
This has been studied for decades now, and it shows that punishment isn't helping you. It's not helping your child. You're not getting what you want. And if you're watching this video, we know that what you want is to raise kids who are successful in every arena of their lives, including self-esteem and communication skills and how they are ethically treating themselves and others in the world. And punishment just is going to teach them the opposite of all of that.
Well, I think absolutely, and we teach a lot of this when we speak to parents, you know, at workshops and, you know, even in our private practices. And punishment is, in most cases, not even directly related to the incident. I have spoken to teens that have taken, you know, an advanced psychology class, and they all shared with me that as soon as they, you know, quote unquote, misbehave or do something or don't get an A grade or what have you, their parents take their technology away, their cell phones. And so, you know, that's the go-to because we think it's the thing that children value the most. And so from a child's point of view, you know, in the number of children that were in this particular class I spoke in, and, you know, obviously it's not a sample of the world, but they said that in no way does it teach them anything. We know this from the research that's being done. It's not remotely connected, and it just makes them, you know, angry, and they get over it. So, you know, a week later they get their cell phone back, or a day, what have you, and there's no lesson learned. And I think that's the first issue. The second issue is it creates a disconnect. Our children, you know, as Erin said, our children learn to lie. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to be punished. So they learn to lie to us so that they don't have to deal with the, you know, consequences, so to speak. And when we remove the punishment and create the connection and the openness and the non-judgmental approach of our children and their, you know, little baubles, I don't know what you want to call them, but, you know, they're little shifts down the wrong lane, maybe, let's call them. Those are great opportunities for them to learn and discuss what they could have done differently. And we all learn best from trial and error. We learn from our biggest mistakes sometimes. So we're never going to be able to prevent our children from making mistakes, nor should we, because those are where the greatest lessons learned come from. So, you know, I think the question of parents is, do you want to connect with your children, or do you want to see more disconnect? And the more we go down the route of punishment, we are disconnecting, and we're raising children that are disconnected from adults. And then they continue,
and maybe disconnected from themselves.
From themselves as well, exactly. And so, you know, one of the keys to connection is that openness, that ability to talk through, you know, both the positive, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and to do it in a way where our children, you know, like Erin's story, and my children do talk to me as well about everything. Sometimes
mind-boggling things.
Yeah, sometimes way too much information, especially at the dinner table. It's like, really? Did you just bring that up? But, you know, you learn to just, you know, not get wide-eyed and just accept, because you don't want to shut them down. You want them to be able to open freely and discuss everything. And the more we remove ourselves from that world of, you know, cause and effect and, you know, consequence, a big consequence that you did this, so this is what happens, the more we can create the connection with our children, deeper connections.
And I wanted,
go ahead.
I wanted to add a quick little story about that, how important it is for us to be mindful of the way we are responding or reacting to our children. Before I say that, though, I want to reinforce to parents something that Sue and I tell parents at all of our workshops. It's never too late to make a change, make a bit different choice with the way you relate to your child, whether the child is 2 or 10 or 20 or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's never too late. So let go of the guilt. You're learning a new way now. Do it better from here on out and be happy and grateful for it. So I think that's an important thing because there's far too much guilt placed upon parents.
Mm-hmm.
But
Can I vouch for that?
Yeah.
I want to, you both have made really important points that I just want to highlight. Sue, you said that, we can't stop our children from making mistakes, nor should we try, because we learn best through trial and error, experimentation and experience.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to let that be said again here. And then Erin, you said, and I forgot it already, about the guilt and how it's never too late. And I just want to vouch for that as a child who was severely punished growing up as a means of correcting and controlling me. When I grew up to do my own inner work to heal from that and come out the other side, and my parents finally started to realize on their own, it's so interesting. I got to highlight this because it's coming up. When we change, the people around us have to change with us, or change, leave or die. There's this old spiritual adage that says,
yes,
when you change, the people around you will either change with you, leave or die. And what I found in my family is that as I've changed and I've done my own inner work, my parents have stepped forward and started apologizing and wanting to make amends. And I had to say to them, thank you. And now please forgive yourself, because that guilt that you're carrying is only going to drive a wedge between us and for you. So I just wanted to say, from the parent point of the view of the child who had parents who made mistakes like this, that it's true what Erin and Sue are saying, that it's never too late. And even I would think it was 28 when my mother finally apologized.
Wow.
And my natural response to her was, I have already forgiven you. Please forgive yourself. And that's been a journey for us over the last 9 years. And so I just wanted to share that, so that the parents out there know that it truly is never too late. And your kids love you. And we know that you're loving your kids the best way that you can. And hopefully this introduction to conscious parenting and to Sue and Erin's work will help you start to forgive yourself and do what you're intending to do with your children, which we know is to love them and support them and help them thrive in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
And I think that guilt you hit the nail on the head, and I teared up with your sharing. I can relate because my parents came to terms with their upbringing, the raising of me much later, more like when they were 60 and I was, well, maybe when they were 70. I don't know. It's been not too long. And so, it's no matter when, it doesn't matter.
It's never too late.
It's never too late for us to grow and change. My kids were in their teens. I'm still working, on the relationships each and every day, because again, it's a journey. There's never an end game. And so, I have 23 and 19. So, in our coaching businesses, Erin and I coach parents of kids with all ages. Some people come to us that have adult children. Maybe they want them to move out of the house. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a movie. But I think, allowing that guilt to leave us as the parents of, raising children now, and of the previous generation of, shame, that children were raised with shame. Parents were, used a lot of punitive means of raising. And I think there's, again, lack of children being seen, heard, and valued. I know, at dinner it was children should be seen but not heard. Don't dare talk at the dinner table. And so, and I also was a product of punitive measures that were more than just sit in the corner. So, I definitely agree with what you said. And, it's definitely it touches my heart to have heard you share that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sue. You hit on this, children are to be seen and not heard. And I'm just going to share really quickly that one of the most devastating choices I have made in this lifetime thus far came when I was a teenager, because I was taught a lesson of not talking out of turn and to not talk while adults were talking. And so this really serious, scary situation happened. And I went to talk to my parents about it. And they were talking with other adults. And because I learned that lesson that I should be seen and not heard in front of other adults, and that it wasn't okay to interrupt, so I had to sit there with this thing building up in me. And the more that I sat there holding on to this fear and anxiety over what had just happened, the more my mind started talking to me about, well, what if they don't believe you? And what if they blame you for this? And what if they don't understand? And so I just got up and I never shared it with my parents. And it turned, eventually, no, there's no secrets, right? Eventually everything comes out in the wash, and it came out, and it was a horrific episode of my life that sometimes I still look back on and have to deal with today. And so I just wanted to highlight that is how can we change that lesson? What can we do instead? It just seems like that is really, and that's a part of the conditioning that you two are talking about, right? That's a form of conditioning, right? Is this idea that you're supposed to be seen and not heard. What is a better lesson to teach children to help them? I mean, what do we do instead is my question.
I think that,
go ahead.
oh, I think that children should be seen and heard and valued. I think that's what Sue said earlier. And I think it's important to understand that we're not raising mini-me's. Children are not computers to be programmed. What we believe is that they come into this life with their own unique spirit, their own personalities, their own likes and dislikes, their own talents, strengths, weaknesses. And so our job as parents is not to kind of, like drag them along behind us, like we're in the front leading the way, dragging them along, but really to stand beside them and walk together through this life that we're sharing, and to really see them and honor them for who they are. They may be like us, they may be completely different, they may have some qualities the same, some different, but they are unique like a fingerprint. And so I think it's really important as parents that we see them for who they are, not as little people to be trained, or, oh, they're not living up to our expectations, or they're not like me. I liked sports and they don't. Oh, this is a problem. I have to force them, something like that. It's really to restrain ourselves from wanting to program them like computers and allow them to blossom into the fullest expression of who they came here to be. And that self-discipline, it takes so much self-discipline, but you can restrain yourself and control yourself by doing that inner work to understand your past conditioning, your childhood, your wounds, what was taught to you, and how you can deconstruct all of that so that you can stand beside them and be that confidant, be a consultant. When they're little, they need so much help from us. They need to learn how to walk and talk and feed themselves, and we have to change their diaper and bathe them and all that. But we have to gradually, with every step they take, the first step, the first time they put the spoon in their mouths, everything, with each step they take, we have to let go a little bit more and a little bit more. If we hold on tightly and try to control them, when they get released into the world, they're not going to know what to do. Right.
I'd love to add just a little story to that, because I think it goes in so many directions, the seen, heard, and valued, and the spirit of the child. So, you could have 3 children, you could have 2 children, it doesn't matter. Each child is uniquely different. Each child is in and of, a spirit in and of itself, of themselves. And so I think the important thing is to really, as a parent, understand what your children are about. Take the time to step back and look at your child. For example, at 15 and 16, probably still today if she was home at night, my youngest daughter wanted me to put her to bed, to tuck her in and sing her a song. And I can remember going through this. I share the story in workshops. I remember thinking, she's too old. That's the worst thing we could think, is that the child is too old for what they're asking for. They're asking because they need it. And I paid attention to her body language and her disappointment when some days, I said, oh, I got to do the laundry. I was too busy. Basically it was an excuse. So I didn't have to do this activity, thinking, she doesn't really need it. I don't know why she's asking. But yet when I did realize it, kind of like a ton of bricks had hit me, that she was asking because this was what this child needed. She needed time with her mom at night, putting her to bed, singing a song, and the lousy tone of voice I have for, singing, not a singer, it didn't matter. That's what she needed. And, we raise our children sometimes in society, in a cookie cutter situation, so to speak, that, well, bedtime's 15 minutes for each child and then time's up. And I think not every child needs that. I know as a kid, I needed much more than that. I did not receive it, which has taught me a lesson, obviously, in where we are today. But, the same thing goes for all day long. We need to fill our children's buckets. And if we're not listening and we're not paying attention to them, their needs are unmet because they need us in one way, shape, or form. Finding out what that looks like is unique to each child. And so the greatest thing a parent can do is step back and look at each child individually and say, what is this child all about? What does this child call from me? What do they need from me on a daily basis? What's this picture look like? And same thing with each of their children. And I guarantee if they do that with, all of their children, it will be very unique to each one if we really tap into the spirit of that child. And if we can give our children those unique things that they need, then we're feeding their soul and we're also connecting with them deeply. But you have to see it before you can give it and nurture it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So now I want to help the viewers stay in touch with you and receive a little bit more value than I feel like you guys have contributed so much to this conversation and to this event. Thank you so much. And you also have a free gift for the viewers. So would you like to talk to the moms about what that might be?
Sure. We have created the ABCs of parenting, which really kind of highlights a lot of what we have spoken about here today and even more. And so if you visit our website, oh, you have it?
All I have to do is click the link below the screen.
Click the link.
Yep, that's it.
And then you get
Make it super easy.
Yay.
And so what are the benefits of receiving that gift?
They're kind of almost like bullet points of areas of focus where you can start to, we've kind of highlighted a lot of the elements, the basic core elements of conscious parenting, and just some kind of bullet points of where you can focus, how you can begin to make some changes, little baby steps. This ABCs of parenting is not complex. It's not, up in the clouds. It's very on the ground, actionable steps that you can take today, tomorrow, this weekend, right away to start making some small changes in your relationship with your children.
That's awesome. Sue, do you want to add to that?
I would love to. It's 26 because there's 26 letters to the alphabet. So take one each day. Try on something new. Don't expect yourself to go through 1 through 26 in a day. Take small baby steps to make any change that you make in your parenting or anything in life. It's really important to be gentle with yourself, to always remember to take good care of yourself because we believe self-care is really important. And if you do try to practice, one of the ABCs, practice one thing, focus on that, move to the next thing, and really be gentle with yourself as you move through the baby steps of shifting and changing.
That's awesome. Thank you, ladies. So moms, go ahead and click the link below the screen to receive that totally free gift from Erin and Sue. And ladies, again, I just want to thank you so much for contributing. Is there anything else that you want to say before we close?
I want to say thank you for having us. We feel honored to be here.
Thank you.
I couldn't say anything better. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure. All right, a lot of good stuff, moms. I hope that you take this interview and that you listen to it again and again, and that you just have so much gentleness and grace with yourself, and that you take advantage of that free gift from Erin and Sue. And I love you. And thank you for showing up for yourself and your children. And I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.